Right. Hi, my name is Steve Whitacre. I'm the operations manager and the academic advisor for the Sovereign Grace Pastors College, and I'm here with Mark Prater, who is the executive director of Sovereign Grace Churches and a pastor at Covenant Fellowship. Mark, thanks for taking the time to talk with us about the Pastors College. I'm excited to have this conversation with you because more than maybe anybody I know, you travel and interact with Sovereign Grace pastors, visit Sovereign Grace churches. You get to see firsthand the difference that the Pastors College and the difference it's making in graduates, you get to see that firsthand in churches throughout the country. Mm-hmm. And I would love it if you could give us your perspective on the difference that the Pastors College has made in the history of Sovereign Grace to bring us to the point that we are at now.
Yeah, I think the Pastors College has been vital to this family of churches that we dearly love. And by the way, as I go and visit our churches and pastors, I still think they're the best, and I thank God for them. I just see the effect of the Pastors College being one that I think first and foremost brings a theological worldview.
Good.
And when a pastor's trained here, his theological worldview is not only informed, it's strengthened, and he brings that theological worldview into his ministry. It affects his philosophy of ministry. It affects his preaching. It affects how he pastors people. It affects how he leads people. Mm-hmm. All of those being key components. And then obviously protect his flock, another key component of pastoral ministry. So I think that overall big picture, there's a theological worldview that's imparted here that you maybe get in different seminaries, but what's unique about the Pastors College, it's a theological worldview that is seen through the lens a bit, not only through Scripture, but with the purpose of strengthening our shared values and our shaping virtues.
That's outstanding.
And that helps a pastor strengthen his local church. I would say just one other thing. What you see, especially if a guy comes married, is pastors' families are strengthened. Men who come as single men, they're strengthened as disciples of Christ. But men who come married, their wives are strengthened, their parenting is strengthened, and that affects the local church. It affects how the members of the churches want to pursue their marriage and how they want to go about parenting.
That's outstanding to hear. So as you have traveled around, any stories come to mind of specific pastors or specific churches that are benefiting from receiving a guy back from the Pastors College?
Yeah, I just had lunch with the Pastors College students. And one of them said, I'm going back and recommending that every elder that we hire in the future is a Pastors College student. And specifically what he referenced, he said, especially if they're married, because I've learned a lot this year, but what my wife and I have enjoyed, what our family has enjoyed, he said, it's irreplaceable. He said, I can't get this anywhere else. There's something special that has happened to us during this year. And so again, it's not just theological training. It's the investment into a man and his life and his marriage and his family. That will have a real strengthening impact on the church. So that's just a story I just heard just a few minutes ago while here in Louisville. Okay. So that's a wonderful story. I think another story I just think of recent graduates who've returned. I was recently in Knoxville visiting at their invitation, Cornerstone Church in Knoxville, a long time, just wonderful Sovereign Grace Church, spoke at a leaders retreat, spent time with their leaders, but interacting with a couple of men that are recent graduates. One being Josh Varnado, who is now planning to plant a church along with Drew Williams, also a PC graduate,
so
on the north side of Knoxville. And the reason that they're equipped to do that as young men is because of their training at the Pastors College and their ongoing discipleship at Cornerstone Church. So it's the church working with the Pastors College that results in mission. Mm-hmm. It results in new churches being planted. And may the result of all of that be there are people that are reached on the north side of Knoxville with the gospel of Jesus Christ, ultimate purpose for the glory of Jesus Christ. So it was just wonderful to see those. is Jake Cronin, who is a recent PC graduate and has strengthened his church in a number of ways, but one of them is just devoting time to evangelism. And he has that gifting. He came to the pastor's college as sort of an evangelist type of guy. But what he got here strengthened him theologically, and it strengthened his life. And as a result, he's even more effective in what he's doing. And that's just another story of recent travels.
Yeah, oh, that's great. Those are great stories to hear, and I love especially the effect on church planting and seeing growth in those ways. So as you travel around, you talk with a lot of pastors, I know, about all sorts of things, but about the pastor's college too. And I'm sure that you hear some reservations or some objections, challenges with the pastor's college. Guys think, well, it's expensive. We really depend on this guy. We're going to be without him for 10 months. So are there other objections you hear? And then how do you normally speak to those objections?
Yeah, I think there's consistent objections. You've hit most of them. Financial, you're going to lose them for a year. I think for guys who are at a point and they may have just a very good job, very good vocation, very good career, and if I leave it, will I have a job when I get back? I'm not assuming that my church can hire me. And some churches may not be able to hire them. So what does that look like? And those are the most consistent objections that I hear. And I think the way I respond to them, all of them, I think require faith. And it is a faith in God to provide financially. And I believe you can raise money. Guys can raise money to go to the pastor's college if they're clear about why they're going. I think losing a guy for a year, there's the impact on the church. So a pastor has to have faith that losing that, let's say, as a leader for a year, that God will continue to have that ministry flourish while he's away. But also for the man, and maybe if he's married, a wife and family, they're leaving for a year. What's the impact on their family? I think you have to have faith that actually your family is going to be strengthened during this time. And then I think with someone that's got a career and will I have a job when I get back, what I think what experience has taught us is that there have been guys who have left really good jobs, and one of two things have happened. They contacted their employer about returning, and because they did their work so well, they wanted them to come back. And those that didn't have that opportunity, actually God provided jobs that are just as income providing and just as satisfying in what they do. So I just think we can't allow obstacles to minimize how big our God really is and how he will provide in each of those obstacles that I think are very legitimate and people have.
Yeah, it seems like sometimes those obstacles loom large, and it's easy to lose sight of the obstacles. They're real, but the payoff, the benefit, the return on that investment, the training that a guy can receive at the pastor's college is such a big offset to that sacrifice. So, I love hearing those stories and hearing you muse on that. Now, I wonder if you could also say something about. Think for a minute about, you interact with a lot of guys who have graduated from pastor's college, but also as you travel around, you interact with a lot of guys who maybe have become pastors in Sovereign Grace, but never had the chance to go. And pastor's college can serve in a continuing education type way. So it seems to me like there's a lot of benefit to pastors maybe coming to visit, coming in for a week to audit a class. So how have you seen that be beneficial in the ongoing ministry of guys, even if they did graduate, but especially if they never had the chance to come?
Yeah, I think if a guy, and we have wonderful pastors who haven't graduated from the pastor's college. Some of them have seminary degrees, and that's wonderful theological training. I think there's a couple of things unique to the pastor's college that are important for an existing pastor to continue to get theological education. Regardless if you graduate from the PC or not, we're talking in the not attending PC category. But let me just speak in the first one, and that would be the preservation of our theological convictions. Because we're living in a time, probably not a unique time, but we're living in a time where those theological convictions are being challenged. There's really pressure from the culture to capitulate. And the culture doesn't change us, but we can give in to the pressure of that if we don't have courage, and that courage will only be there if we have strong theological convictions. And so we will prevent a local church from drifting theologically or to giving into pressures, and a family of churches together by having ongoing theological education.
Yeah.
And you've got to remember, in our history, thanks to CJ, and I would say Jeff as well, in the area of theological education, there have been good foundations laid. And we don't have to do more foundation laying. What we've got to do is to continue to build on the foundations that are being laid, and that includes preserving our theological convictions. So I think that's very, very important. The other reason, especially for a guy who hasn't graduated from the PC, theological instruction at the pastor's college has in view ultimately reinforcing our gospel values and gospel virtues, our shared values and shaping virtues. And so take the pneumatology class. That's a recent class that Jeff has developed. This will be the third year. If you haven't been at this class, that's one of them. Please consider coming to. One of our shared values is continuationist pneumatology. And you will best understand continuationist pneumatology when you have a broader theological grid of our pneumatology, a broader understanding of our pneumatology. So our churches can be strengthened by pastors who attend classes like that, and that's just one example. And ultimately, our heart in it is that it serves the local church in strengthening them, not only in their theological convictions, but the gospel culture that we're building together.
Yeah, I love that. So as somebody who is here in Louisville, and I get to interact with pastors who come in to take a class, to audit a class, I've seen some guys make the most of that. Just a couple ideas, a couple suggestions. Making the most use of your time when you're here might be get with one of the pastors who's here. You're coming into town, see if you can schedule time with Bob or with Jeff or Brian Chesmore. You want to learn more about counseling, talk to Tyson. So there's a lot of opportunities like that. We've also had guys who have teamed up with friends, and they've said, hey, maybe we graduated PC together, let's meet up at a class and do that together. And so, and then I think the interactions with the students are really valuable, just as a way to continue to invest in Sovereign Grace. So as you have a pretty good idea of the curriculum and the classes that are involved. So you mentioned pneumatology.
Yep.
Any other classes that come to mind that you would recommend Sovereign Grace pastors come and audit?
Yeah. Another quick idea, just what you just said. Think about coming together, some of the guys in the same region. Oh, good. Yeah. I think this happened last year at the pneumatology class. Jace Hudson pulled together guys in his region, and they rented a house together, if I've got my story right. And so it's not just the time in class that you enjoy. It's also the fellowship you enjoy hanging out together as you rent a house. And doing that at a regional level, I think, just strengthens partnership among churches as well. So just another idea. Yeah, I think pneumatology, obviously, I would encourage you to get to that. I think Jeff's classes on homiletics are really good because every preacher knows this. You always want to be growing in your preaching. And I would say take week 1 and week 2 of homiletics with Jeff. I think it's Josh is teaching hermeneutics. That would be another Josh class Blunt, that comes to mind, Josh Blunt. That could be really good, just wanting to continue to grow in your hermeneutics, which can affect, obviously, how you exegete a text correctly, which affects your homiletics. Yeah. I think that would be really, really important. There's also several guest lectures that come. Yep. I would recommend Steve Wellham's systematic class. Oh, yeah. He teaches one or more than one?
I think it's just one.
One, okay. Steve Wellham's systematic class, I would recommend that one. Just about 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, I took Denny Burke's class on biblical sexual ethics. Yep. Just given the challenges in the culture right now, I wanted to be more informed, and I found that class very beneficial. And the biblical theology class, I would recommend that one as well. So those are a few off the top of my head.
Yeah, biblical theology usually pretty early in the year. The other classes kind of throughout the schedule as we go on. But hermeneutics comes early in the year too. Those are great. I think those are great classes. You can't go wrong in one sense.
Yeah, right. So, choose any of them.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Maybe let's finish with this then. Last question. Any other advice that you would want to give to a senior pastor who's thinking about sending a guy to the pastor's college, or a guy who's considering coming? He's weighing his options and considering, is this worth it? Should I do it? What would you tell him?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because I think for both the senior pastor thinking about sending a guy and a guy thinking about coming, it's a sacrifice. I think one of the things you have to really think through is the sacrifice. And because for the senior pastor, he's probably sending one of his best. He's sending a really good leader. And if it's a church that feels the impact of that, the church feels that. Right. I would say that sacrifice makes our partnership and mission very, very real. Yeah. So when you make sacrifices, a similar analogy to sending out a church planting team, you feel the sacrifice, but mission becomes more genuine. I think it's the same for pastoral ministry.
That's great.
When you send a guy and you feel that sacrifice for a year and he comes back and you're just strengthened by it, man, pastoral ministry becomes, I think, more joyful, happier, and strengthened. And then for the guy who's coming, you got so many sacrifices to think through. You've got to think about your family, moving them. You've got to think about the ages of your kids. You've got to think about income. How do you be a provider? Again, have faith for all of those. And as you think about your kids, I would say this: your kids will benefit from the time here. Yeah. Not only in terms of friendships that are formed by either other PC students or with other kids in Sovereign Grace Church of Louisville, but they will benefit from the instruction you're receiving and that your wife benefits from in terms of just discipleship. Because that's a part of what Brian does. He's discipling and he's caring for students, which other seminaries do that, but Brian's doing it.
Not like Brian.
And he's one of our best. And so your family will be strengthened
absolutely.
Coming to the pastor's college. So my point of what I'm saying is that, yes, there's sacrifice. It is worth the sacrifice.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Mark, thanks for the time. Really appreciate your perspective. You have a unique vantage point on this as the executive director, and so really appreciate the time. So if you're curious to learn more, of course, our website is sgcpastorscollege.com, and follow us on social media. Follow our YouTube page with lots of other videos, part of our video library. If you're wondering about Pastors College and you have specific questions we can help with, don't ever hesitate to reach out. I would be happy to consult with anybody. Brian Chesmore will get on Zoom or on phone with you, and we can talk through any of the questions that you might have about how to make this as smooth a process as possible. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching this video, and we look forward to serving you in the future at the Pastors College.